having someone that I don't know as well encouraging me on running and someone else and anything else, it's so supportive that I would recommend it to anyone, and I think it worked really well from my journey because having such a big support system just made all the difference.
Yeah. So you have a passion for fitness and the desire to start your own business, but launching a massively successful fitness business is extremely complex. The systems, operations, hiring, firing, coaching, sales, and marketing are critical to success. Where do you even start? This show will give you the answers. Here is Bedros Keuilian and Bryce Henson, your hosts of the Fitness Franchise Podcast, a show dedicated to helping fitness entrepreneurs launch and grow successful gyms.
Welcome back, friends, and today we have another incredible episode as today's guest is a dear friend of mine who's also a fitness transformation success story and also my facility coordinator at my Yorba Linda Fit Body Bootcamp location. In addition to this, she has her bachelor's in psychology and she is pursuing her degree in nursing. Haley Harris, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bryce. Thank you for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. So before we dive in, which we have a lot to discuss about you and your role of facility coordinator and the incredible work that you've done over the last handful of years, first and foremost, give us the backstory. How did you get to where you are today?
So I don't think my backstory is probably as typical as probably some other people in the industry of Fit Body, but I actually ended up meeting Tatiana through a mutual friend, and I actually started on as a client. I needed a job at the time when I was in college. I started doing the cryotherapy technician, slowly moved up to the front desk from there, and then the opportunity arose for me to become the facility coordinator, and I kind of just stepped into that role.
Well, that's definitely oversimplifying it. It's definitely a journey, but it's a good highlight. So we'll talk about, actually, first and foremost, let's talk about cryo for a second.
Yeah.
And I think at some point we'll have to have an expert on cryotherapy, so viewers stay tuned for that. But can you kind of walk our audience through a little bit of what that was like, kind of running the cryotherapy business?
Yeah, definitely. So cryotherapy was actually something I had never heard of before I actually got hired on. Now I think it's great, and being a nursing student, I definitely recommend it to anyone that I possibly can. So basically, if you don't know what cryotherapy is, you basically are in a chamber and it's freezing cold, and you're in there for about 3 minutes, and it just helps with swelling, joint pain, recovery, and everything else. It's definitely great for athletes and anything. So basically, you'd come in, we'd put you in this big tube, Bryce's favorite thing.
Yeah.
Bryce could not last 3 minutes in there.
I could last, come on. Well.
Definitely not. But no, it's great. Put you in there, try to talk you through it as much as we can. Step out, and it's basically quick. It doesn't last longer than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So it's really good.
Awesome. And then how long did you work at that position before you transferred to the front desk concierge, if you will, at Fit Body?
I think I was there for probably about 2 years, and then I transferred over into being front desk for another 2 years, and then I've been facility coordinator for almost a year now, so a total of 5 years.
Look at that. Well, we're going to dive into a little bit of that in a second here. And next, actually, I want to talk about you and your transformation story since a client. But before we do, kind of putting a bow on the cryotherapy experience, kind of big picture and a good takeaway and lesson. Love cryotherapy, but as a fitness business owner, it's important to focus on your zone of genius. And actually, our cryotherapy business was profitable, even though we decided to wind it down. But what we realized is we could spend a lot more time and attention with our client. So I think that's a good message to the audience, especially with our audience being, interested in fitness and entrepreneurship. We get the shiny object syndrome, so double down, focus on your zone of genius would be probably a big takeaway there. That all said, I mean, you proved yourself, and we saw a lot in you, both my wife Tatiana, and then working with you, and that's kind of why we, continue to make you different positions because
definitely.
You've done such a great job. That in mind, why don't you talk a little bit about how you showed up to boot camp? You've lost over 55 pounds now.
I have.
Congratulations on that.
You.
And I know you're still working on your journey, but talk to the audience a little bit about how Fit Body is as a client, kind of your experience, and then how did you have such great success?
I think for me is I did track in high school. I did cheerleading in high school. So weights or HIIT training was never anything that was in my routine. And so the very first time I actually did boot camp, I was super nervous. I came in with one of my friends that we went to the same college. She was a member there as well. And I actually almost threw up. So it's the first time. It was very, very, very difficult for me. But I kind of made it more of a goal I was like, okay, the first time always going to be the hardest. So decided to keep going, keep going. And one of our coaches, actually Coach Jen, kind of took me under her wing. And that was kind of where I definitely formed the family aspect of the gym, where it's not just a gym. This is, at this point, this is my family. I look forward to going to the gym. I've had so many relationships and friendships come out of the gym. And I think that's what my biggest takeaway was from that, because there's big box gyms and you go in, you come out, the front desk say hi, and you have no idea who they are.
Yep.
But the difference is with boot camp is that's your family, that's your unit, and everyone's there to support you.
Yeah.
So I think that was the big difference for me, was just having someone that I don't know as well encouraging me on running, and someone else and anything else. It's so supportive that I would recommend it to anyone, and I think it worked really well for my journey, because having such a big support system just made all the difference.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, a question for you, and you're so dialed in, you're so wise beyond your years, and I feel one of the big accolades that my wife Tatiana, for viewers back home, has worked more closely with Haley just over the years, but you just have this nurturing care for a clientele. So do you think that was in your nature, or do you think you learned that because of the family aspect that you were just talking about?
I definitely think it's probably a little bit of both. So I grew up very quickly from some family circumstances, and I've always kind of had that nature part of me. My friends always call me the mom, so there you go.
There you go. Well, I think it would then at least a part of his DNA.
No, yeah, definitely. But also from boot camp, because I look at it as every single client that comes in the facility is going to become part of our family. I want to make sure that they are taken care of and that they're happy and everything else. So that nurture side also does come out. So that's basically just how I look at it.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I had a couple of questions actually about the client aspect, and I was going to ask them later, but I think now is a good time since we're talking about your journey as a client. So, for viewers back home who are interested in fitness, potentially opening, their own business, being entrepreneurs in the fitness space, what's the client journey like when someone comes in for the first time? I think it'd be really great to kind of, talk about the onboarding kind of process. What are the fears or concerns, apprehensions, if you will? And also, what are the biggest, questions that you get, when you're onboarding a new client?
Yeah, definitely. I think, from my personal experience, I had a great experience. The person who onboarded me was Tatiana.
Yeah.
So Tatiana was the first person that I met at boot camp, and I think just how my interaction with her being so welcoming and basically catering to my every need in that first session is how I try to make sure all of our clients feel as soon as they walk in the door. So as soon as they walk in the door, they're going to be greeted. They're going to meet all of our coaches. We're going to take the time to make sure to learn that if they have any injuries or if they need any modifications. I think the biggest fear or anything else that we get in is people saying that they're I can't do this. And that, in my mind, is just kind of a mindset switch that needs to happen, because it's you can do this. And by the end of the session of them maybe failing the first time, but then getting back up and trying again, it makes a difference. And you see them being so apprehensive at the beginning of the session to being so proud of themselves at the end. And it's just amazing seeing that.
Yeah. Now, what, to your, looking back at your position, how do you think being a client first has actually helped you kind of facilitate that process? Because what I'm trying to get at is you're talking about a client who's kind of maybe nervous or scared, thinking they can't do it, but really it's a mindset. How have you been able to kind of coach that and really kind of welcome in? And I'm curious on your own journey as a client, if that helped in that process.
Oh yeah, completely. I think from me coming into this position from being a client is that I look at everything from a client mindset. So is this going to benefit our clients in any way? How can we make sure to make it better in some way? So basically, when someone's walking in our door, we want to get to know them as much as possible, and which just comes to the time when we book our strategy sessions. They're amazing, and it's amazing sitting down with those clients and creating those one-on-ones and hearing about their goals and learning about their family and their lives. That makes such a difference between me just being hi and bye to someone.
Right.
Now I know about their life, I know about their family, I know about the struggles that they've gone through. And I think coming from a client, that because I had that, that made such a difference for me that I try to make a point that every one of our other clients has that too, because it does make an impact. And at the end of the day, we have these clients that have been with us for years just because we have such deep personal relationships with them.
Totally, and it's a credit to you and the whole team
Thank
under your
you.
leadership. So kind of drilling into the strategy sessions, and it could be strategy sessions or even just in general.
Yeah, just conversations.
What are the big challenges or obstacles aside from like the mindset of like I can't do it? Like what are some of the other concerns or questions or just normal day-to-day things that come up often that you hear that really I think would be insightful for our audience to learn?
I think a lot of it too is that I've seen a lot when clients don't necessarily have like the support at home, it kind of like deters them from really succeeding. So we see a lot of like wives or even husbands come in, but then like if their husband isn't on board, it really bothers them, or if their significant other isn't on board, and then eventually it's like when they do get them on board and they're supporting them or they even come into boot camp, it's crazy just seeing that mindset change. And a lot of it too, like a lot of people have questions with like nutrition as well, and so that's like a really big obstacle in people, because you can work out as much as you want, but if you're not having your proper nutrition, it kind of counteracts.
Yep.
So I think that's a lot too, which is always great when I love when like new clients come in around challenge time, because if we can get them on that challenge, they like, oh my gosh, like I have all these results, and it's like seeing their progress reports and everything else come in. It's just amazing seeing them get so dedicated to like themselves and changing themselves too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And actually, I want to touch on nutrition because you're also a nutrition coach. You do our Fat Loss Forever and just challenge coaching. So, and also nutrition's been a big aspect of your incredible success and your results. What are the common questions that clients have, like specifically nutrition?
I think nutrition is actually, I don't think it's so much of questions. I think it's just more about like education wise. Like a lot of people don't realize how much, like especially like the female population, how much they truly do like starve themselves. So, and it's become as like a society like, oh, it's okay, just eat less, it's fine. And it's actually not fine. So I think a lot of it is not so much, obviously there's going to be like the daily questions of like, what do you think about protein? What do you think about this? But I think my aspect more of it is just making sure that we educate our clients too, to understand that we have to have a certain amount of protein, we have to have a certain amount of carbs and everything else, and that's how our bodies work. And that's kind of like the nursing aspect of it too, because it's like I have the nutrition aspect from boot camp, but I also have like the underneath side of it from nursing as well. So it's easier for me to like explain the physiological part of it, of why we actually need like this nutrition. And once we sit down and have those conversations, I feel like it makes them like, oh, okay, now I do need to make that change. And we see a lot of results from it. But I think most of the time, our daily like questions just like honestly mostly about protein.
Really?
And one of the things that has been great is actually Truline, because it's the whole team uses it. I use it myself. I love Everyday Fit, but having that as a supplement and actually trying it and being able to recommend it to clients and like having recipes that I can give them, it helps a lot, because that's usually I think the biggest struggle that we see is just people not meeting their protein.
Totally. You also mentioned Everyday Fit as well. Like what would you say, what product do most clients gravitate to?
Oh, definitely Everyday Fit, 100%. I think that at least like every day someone's asking for some type of flavor in boot camp. It's great. I love it. I love a lot of our boot campers like happy hour. So the low carb margarita has been really great for them too. So, and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't feel guilty about like when I go out and have like a girls' night or anything else. So they're like, I'll just use this. And so it doesn't give them that guilt of having like consumed so many calories from drinking as well.
All right, awesome. And then, one of the kind of lead-ins we were talking about is just the results. And you said, like, we've seen a lot of clients' results. So can you share a little bit about some of the client success and maybe a story to or one client that comes to mind?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my clients that really comes to mind is our client, Stacy. And so I know that you've met Stacy. Stacy's lost about 100 pounds, and she is just someone who, talking about coming in and being so uncomfortable and like feeling like you can't do anything, seeing her on her first day versus seeing her now, it is crazy how much of a difference of even just her as like a person. Like you met her that first day, she was so quiet, she was so shy, like just kind of not talking to anyone.
Right.
And now Stacy dances and sings in the middle of boot camp session, and it is amazing. She's someone I definitely go to when I talk about my transformation stories, because it's not even the superficial transformation, it's like her health too. Like, I know Stacy has done like her stories, but she was pre-diabetic, lost all her weight, and now she's completely fine. So for her, not only was it a physical transformation, but it also was so much about her health. Like, she has a young son, she wanted to be able to run around and have like a life with him, and now she completely has that. And it's just great to see.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. One other thing I want to touch on before we kind of transition to like the day-to-day nuts and bolts of your facility coordinator role, but from the relationships you talked about, the community, you've met a lot of friends at boot camp. Like, you know, can you showcase to the audience like the importance of the relationships and the culture and kind of what you've seen? And the reason I think it's really important to kind of bring forth is because culture and relationships are so important about a fitness facility, kind of creating that family. So can you just talk a little bit about maybe what you've seen and the focus that you put on in terms of relationships, culture, and friendships?
Yeah, definitely. I think obviously, like, without culture, like, you don't have anything. So I definitely think that culture is something that makes the gym so successful, is that every single one of our clients that walks in the door, we know something about their personal lives. So I think it makes such a difference. Like, we had a client who, she hadn't been in boot camp for like a couple of weeks, or like something's weird, like something's off. And so because we know her and we're comfortable like reaching out to her, we actually called her and we're like, hey, like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, like, it's fine. And then 2 minutes later, she's crying on the phone telling us that like her husband had some health stuff going on.
Oh, no.
And even though it wasn't like directly related to her, we've done everything that we can to support her and her husband, and her daughter Madison loves to come in and do burpees and try to work out on the side. But being able to be not only their support system at the gym, but outside of the gym is such like a big honor, and it makes like me happy. That's one of like my highs of like boot camp, is I love being there for like our clients, whether it's personal, whether it's on the floor. Having those relationships means something, because when our clients start to drop off, we can just let them drop off and they just kind of do their own thing, and maybe they'll come back. Or we can form those relationships and ask them what's going on, and then them open up, talk to us, and we can kind of figure out a game plan on their best course of action to get them back into boot camp or anything else like that.
Awesome. I think it's just so important, and I want to kind of acknowledge you for that, because you've done such a good job personally, but also with the team. And those cultural relationships, the vibes, the energy of the facility are just so important. So if you're watching this at home, and if you're anything like me when you first started thinking it's only about the fitness, which is certainly important, that's not the case. It's really about the relationships, the value, the culture that you create. So,
definitely.
Which is really that family feel that you talked about.
Yes.
All right. So that all said, I'm sure we'll probably dialogue about clients and whatnot, but I want to transition here to your facility coordinator role. And we talked about, you kind of gave the big picture, 5-year story, if you will. But one of the things that you've done just an incredible job is just executing, right? And that's how we first started at Cryo. Tatiana would be like, oh my God, Haley's awesome. We should kind of give her more. We give her more. Now then you became the front desk concierge. And then last year in the middle of COVID, we actually had a miss in terms of hiring and brought someone in that just was unfortunate, and we made the decision, even though part-time schedule, to appoint you as a facility coordinator, which we knew it had a time limit on, especially as your now nursing career is kind of getting bigger and stronger and more intense. So by the time this recording goes out, you won't be the facility coordinator anymore. However, it just goes to show like how much confidence and faith that we had in you, just because you've executed so well. So that all said, can you walk us through like the daily life of facility coordinator for the audience back at home, maybe who doesn't really know what it's like?
Yeah, definitely. It is very hectic. I love every second of it, but basically I give credit to my team. My team is amazing, so it makes my job a lot easier. But being the facility coordinator, you basically are pulling all of the strings for the facility, and so many strings that you don't even realize would even go into boot camp or anything else. And I think mostly like my day-to-day is just making sure that I'm on top of everything, and that's something that I've I'm very organized on my own, but I've had to be very organized for boot camp just to make sure that nothing slips through the cracks. Because once something does, we start to notice it.
Right.
So facility coordinator is just making sure that you're you're checking in the team, you're checking in with the clients, you're following up with people who are on freeze or coming off of freeze, injuries. You basically are doing one big sweep and making sure everything's good to go and all the clients are good. If we have challenges, I'm on the back end of the challenges, making sure everything's good to go. Onboarding, strategy sessions, just everything that goes into
Your
boot
mind
camp.
hurting yet? There's a lot there. So that's tough to unpack, I guess, from a skill set perspective, but can you take a stab at it? You talked about like the organization, which comes to mind as well. What other skill sets are needed for this role?
Definitely organization is a big one. I think communication skills are really, really important. You're running in a whole team. I have my leadership team. I have to be able to communicate when something's going on. And I think having that balance of being able to kind of, in a sense, like put your foot down and just making sure that everything's, at the end of the day, it's about like our clients and making sure that everything's going good for our clients. So when something's not, you need to have like the strength to make sure to course correct and fix that as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to point out, I feel like you do really well, is like you're very assertive,
Yeah.
which you need to be, right?
Yeah.
Especially when you're, corralling a bunch of clients and team and camp and leadership and all that. So I want to acknowledge you for that. But can you talk a little bit about, that specific component?
Yeah, definitely. For me personally, it's something that I work on. Sometimes I need to learn how to be a little bit more bubbly and friendly and channel my inner Alicia. But no, being assertive, I definitely think is very, very important because yes, not only are you running your team, but you have clients that we love all of our clients, but we are going to have some difficult clients.
Yep.
And you have to be able to, at the end of the day, like, it's about our clients. So anything that's going to be best for our clients, you have to be assertive enough to make sure that you are able to put those steps in to make sure that nothing's going to happen that will ultimately impact boot camp or the clients in any way.
Yeah, and it's important. And I think outside eyes, I think you do that really well.
Thank you.
And you talked about Coach Alicia, who has like that bubbly
Yes.
personality. But I think you need both, right?
Yes,
you need
you
like,
do.
I think that's the value of
I
the team.
think that's what's great about my facility leader, Alicia. We are complete opposites, but she is my other half. She is my sweet angel Alicia, and then there's Haley. But we play off so well because Alicia is so sweet that it allows me to have a little bit more of that assertiveness to where I can be the assertive one, but then I have Alicia coming behind me who's just hugs, kisses, everything.
There you go. And that's important for you viewers. We shot a podcast with her as well. And that will give you a good look at the two different interviews to kind of to see different skill sets. And both are important to kind of make the magic happen.
Yes, 100%. You talked about community and everything else, and Alicia is a very, very large part of that as well.
Totally. All right. So big picture, can you spelled out some details of the role, but what would you say are the biggest like accolades or sense of fulfillment in the role?
Yeah.
And then I'll tee that up, and then the flip side, I'm going to ask you like the other side, the challenges. So start with the positives first.
The positives first, for me, is kind of like what I kind of touched on earlier, is just seeing these transformations. And honestly, what makes me so happy and just makes like my heart happy is when I can like stand off to the side and just watch the session and see my coaches smiling, my clients are having a good time, everything's just going so smoothly. And it just makes me so happy seeing that I can see Jen in the corner correcting, Alicia's correcting someone, and just knowing that I can step back and everything is fine and running how it's supposed to be is a very big high, because it means that I'm doing my job for my team, but also for my clients. But from specifically just my clients, I think my highs are when clients want to come and just talk. Because you meet so many people and you're just like, hey, bye, hi, or anything else. But when they sit there after sessions and want to talk for like 20 minutes about anything, that just shows me that I've done something correctly in my job to where my clients are comfortable enough and want to have a relationship with me and have conversations that have nothing to do with boot camp. So for me, that's probably my high with that.
Totally. And that's another accolade to you for the awesome culture you've created.
Yes.
All right, so that's one of the senses of big sense of fulfillment. Let's walk the audience down the other side, or the challenges, because let's face it, nothing in
Yes.
life is all sunshines and rainbows. What would you say was your biggest challenges?
My biggest challenge is ultimately, I wish that we could keep our clients for the rest of eternity, but unfortunately, sometimes we do have to part ways. And I think for me, that is the most difficult part, because in my sense, I internalize it to I'm like, what did I do wrong, or what did we do wrong? And sometimes it has nothing to do with us, and
Right.
I'm fully aware of that. But for me, I take it almost personal, because I want to make sure that anyone that, if we do end up parting ways, always can look back and be like, gosh, like I love Yorba Linda, like I wish I didn't have to leave or eventually come back. And that's always what I want to make sure that the client experience is there. That's the hardest part for me, is just having to have those conversations or talk to someone about canceling and everything else, because it breaks a little bit of my heart. But the team does such a good job in trying to make sure that even when like we do have people cancel, I've never seen anything bad on our cancellation form. It's always like, unfortunately I'm moving, but I love the whole team. They're so supportive. And that's, if I'm gonna have a cancellation come in, that's what I wanna see on there. Yeah.
Well, good on you. And I think that's a big teaching moment for our audience back there, is if you want to be successful and grow an incredibly strong camp like we have under Haley's leadership, you need to find someone and develop someone who takes ownership and really pride in every interaction. And there's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I know this about you, obviously having a personal relationship with you, but hearing this like, in front of the cameras just reinforces that's a huge reason why you've been successful.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Totally. So that in mind, the reason you've been successful kind of from that train of thought, taking a 30,000 foot view, I'm asking you to kind of pump your own tires or brag a little bit, but why have you been successful? Like in your zone of genius, why do you think you've basically risen to the ranks and at such a young age been able to lead a team?
Honestly, I think my biggest struggle is being so young. Like for those who don't know me, I'm 24, so I am the baby of Team Henson and Yorba Linda. So coming from outside view, you're like, hey, like why is the young kid running the facility? But I think for me, the reason why I've been so successful with this role is just building that team connection. I have team members ranging from 35 to like 47. And the fact that I can have tough conversations with them, and at the end of the day, my team is still as tight-knit as ever, I think is really important. There's always going to be good and bad times, but I think as a facility coordinator, having those relationships and making time to go out of your way to make sure that your whole team is bonded, and I know that something Bryce and Tatiana really push is team bondings, and I think they're amazing, and it just really brings everyone together. But having those relationships and going into this role has been very, very helpful for me, because I know that I can have a tough conversation if I need to with my team member, but I can also come back and we're going to be a team still at the end of the day.
Well, I agree. And one thing from a teaching lesson and kind of our audience back home, so I'm really glad you brought that up, being so young. And certainly there was, curiosity from both of us, but we made that decision to put you in charge, even though, some of your teammates are 2 decades older. It's because of the relationship.
Yes.
It's because you've made a concerted effort to really build a relationship with your team, and they respect you. They like you, but more importantly, they respect you.
Yes.
So I think it's a good teaching moment for our audience as well. So that's one part of the question. The second part would be, what about our camp or about our company has made you want to stay, grow, and flourish over the last 5 years? And I think the reason I asked that for our audience back at home who are interested in launching their fitness business, like what they need to do to create a camp or a culture that, a facility coordinator like you, Haley, would want to stay.
Yeah, definitely. And I think honestly, it comes down to, is relationships. Like I have such a good relationship with you and Tatiana, and you guys being so open to me being in a leadership role and supporting me in any way possible. Even if it's something so small, you're always willing to support me. And I think coming from the opposite end of you being like my leader, essentially, is having that support and seeing you bond with us, or when we do team bondings, like, and you're there with us on the same level, it speaks volumes to me, because a lot of times you see it where you never even meet like your boss. Like, you see at these big companies and you're like, I don't know who the owner is or everything else. But being able to say that I've had that personal relationship with you guys, and having the support and just FitBody in general, like going to World Conference and everything else, seeing what's coming out, seeing Matt Wilbur talk about like what makes boot camps work and how to implement this to grow boot camp, it works. And seeing that from having someone teach you from someone who's been so successful in boot camp it's inspiring, because you take that and you want to take it back into your boot camp and grow even more. And I think because it is such a big community, that it makes you want to stay and you want to grow as much as possible and be as successful as possible as well.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
All right, Haley, I know you've been so gracious with your time as we kind of transition here. I want to hit the lightning round. I have a few kind of questions just to extract some last minute information from you, if you're up for it. All right, so, fitness is a passion-based business. What would you say one thing that you are most passionate about in your life, and why?
Honestly, I would say helping people. If it's helping someone that dropped something, or someone helped essentially change their lives at boot camp, helping people is what my goal every day, like in life, is. If I can help one person, then I'm happy for like the day.
Nice.
And it's been so great working at boot camp, because I get to do that every single day.
Beautiful. All right, next question is two-part, actually. And I usually ask the question, what's been a habit that you've acquired that's led to your success? But I'm actually asked for two habits.
Okay.
What's one habit that's led to your success as a fitness client who's had an incredible transformation on your journey? And then what's one habit that's really helped you as a facility coordinator role?
Okay, so I'm going to reverse it. Something that's helped me with facility coordinator is, it sounds really silly, I have a huge calendar in my room, and anything that I have due, even for school or for work, I write it down on the beginning, usually at the beginning of the week. If I can do it at the beginning of the month, then I'll do that. But for me, it just keeps me on task, because I'm a very visual person, so being able to visually see what I have going on helps me, and then it's like a big checklist, so I get to just check it off, and then I'm not missing anything, nothing's sliding through the cracks, nothing gets forgotten either.
Yep. So coming back to organization.
Yes, definitely
Well
organization. And then as a client aspect, I think something that's just really helped me so much is the knowledge, like I've learned from our coaches, having that support system. And I think as well as just creating those relationships at boot camp, because I've had so many friendships come out of boot camp, and now we all keep each other accountable. We're working out this day, working out at this time, or even the coaches. It's just immersing yourself with people who have such like a fit and active lifestyle. It truly does change your own lifestyle, and just surrounding yourself around people who are always going to be so positive for you, it really does like change your life.
Awesome. All right, last question. This is going to be loaded here, but some piece of parting wisdom. So for our audience there that may be looking for a facility coordinator, so what do they need to look for in an awesome facility coordinator like you? And then how to continue to develop them and pour into them. So kind of big picture that will really help the audience.
Yeah, I think when you're looking for someone for facility coordinator, I know that my story is a little bit different, but if you can find someone who's started off as a client, I know even whenever Coach Alicia started off as a client as well, having been a client and working my way up, like essentially like this ladder, has been so helpful for me in so many ways, just because I look at everything from the client aspect of, okay, if I was a client, would I appreciate this? Would I look at this differently? And so it just changes my mindset of thinking of it as a client. And essentially for growing them, honestly, support is a really big deal. Making sure that all of our teams are bonded. Luckily, I'm super grateful for our Yerba Linda and our Mission Viejo team. We all get along. We're all like one big family.
Totally.
So that's been amazing, being a part of something like that, where it's not just a family in like my own location, but as our whole team as a whole. And then as well as just you, specifically you, just providing us so much education on how to be better coaches, on nutrition, on how to grow the facility. Every day we have people tell us things. Well, there's never like well, why? Luckily, I've had such a great owner like you who always gives us the why. You always are explaining why we're doing this, or let me show you why. And I think having that why really helps a facility coordinator grow, because you fully do understand like that big picture. So anything like mastermind domination, I think is amazing.
Oh. Haley, you are so awesome.
Thank you.
This has been so good. I'm blown away, as I always am, the way you showed up and executing this podcast. And before we shoot, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge you. Both myself, Tatiana, the whole team, so grateful for you.
Thank you.
You've been a godsend in our lives. You execute so well, literally for the last 5 years, even before working with you more closely. I've always been hearing from Tatiana and the team like how smart you are, how intelligent you are, how much you care, how detail oriented, and there's no doubt in my mind that's really shaped the direction of our camp and our clients and our team. So I want to acknowledge you for that. I also want to acknowledge you for in the craziest time, mid 2020, jumping in with schedule limitations, and I cannot really just say how grateful I am and how you've exceeded our expectations to a core value. And lastly, I'm just super excited for you, for your family, and all the success that you've achieved and what you're going to be looking towards for nursing as you continue to change more lives in the future.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. So thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
All right, friends. Well, I'm sure you got a ton of value today. This was so insightful. And as always, if you got value, go ahead and please like and subscribe on YouTube and write us an awesome review. It'll help us be able to continue to create this content so that way you can learn, grow, and launch your boot camp and be super successful. Thanks so much. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.